Thank you for listening to the BJJ Podcast. We'll be bringing you Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and good times. We hope to flatten your Jiu-Jitsu learning curve, help you get the most out of your grappling ability, and meet your goals both on and off the mat.
Welcome back, my friends, to the BJJ Podcast. This is episode 248. My name is Joe Thomas. I'm here with my good buddy Byron Jabara and my good buddy Gary Hall. How you guys doing today?
I am doing fabulous, and I know Byron is also.
Yeah.
Good. You doing all right, Byron?
Yeah, doing great. Happy to be here.
Good. So this week on the show, we have David Karchmer, the grappling referee. Byron, give us a little preview on what we have coming in the interview.
Yeah, so we've had him on the show before, and he's refereed like thousands of matches in over many different organizations, and he's just a wealth of knowledge. And we get in a couple different conversations. We talk a decent amount about controlling the border as a referee and what to expect as a competitor. When you kind of close to being off of the edge of the mat, or outside of your designated grappling area. We talk about submissions that aren't actually submissions. So it happens all the time. I'm on Gary's back and choking him pretty good, and he gets his chin under, and I say, okay, face crank, and I just put pressure on his jaw, and what's up? Is that a legal technique? And we have a list of legal techniques, and break Gary's jaw is not on one of those. What kind of a gray area is that? A lot of different things. And another thing I think is valuable to listen to is he talks about common mistakes competitors make about the rules. And I think that he gives some great advice from a referee perspective that's seen thousands of matches, been there, standing there, observing and keeping score. What mistakes are competitors making out there that just he's watching? He's like, you should do that a little bit differently and you'd be better off. And a lot of great information from David. Super happy to have him back.
You're talking about what mistakes grapplers make, and this is probably one of the most well-known grappling referees in all of jiu-jitsu, and so he's seen it all, and just listening to that portion, is worth its weight in gold. I mean, I know our podcast is free. We do appreciate all our Patreon supporters, but that information that he's going to give you, especially if you're a competitor, that's invaluable right there.
Yeah, send the gold to David and just sign up on our Patreon account. We'll be happy with both. I mean, if you have gold, I guess David deserves it. Right, Gary?
He definitely deserves it.
Another thing David talks about is how to become a referee, if that's something you're interested in. He gives advice I wouldn't have even thought of about some of the steps you can make to make it become like a smooth transition and get some practice in without actually having to have all the stress of refereeing, big matches and that sort of thing. So pretty good variety of stuff coming from David, and yeah, great interview coming up, guys.
Speaking of advice, Byron's got some for you. Go check out his audiobook, 6 Games for BJJ. Byron's done some deep thinking and some exploration, and he's come up with 6 ways, and there's more, but these are 6 that he identified, 6 things you can do on the mat that will challenge your jiu-jitsu and force you into expanding your knowledge. So check it out and do yourself a favor and expand your jiu-jitsu.
Yep. Check it out. Listen to it. Try them. And when you're actually doing these games, it's not your best game, obviously, but it is a great opportunity to learn. And so you have to kind of set that ego aside a little bit and roll not quite as good as you usually do, but definitely learn more than you usually do when you're rolling.
Gary likes the game The Floor is Lava, in which he tries to stay completely on top of his opponent at all times, no feet, no hands touching. It just tries to ride his opponent like that.
That's Gary's favorite part of jiu-jitsu is the playing the lava floor. Right, Gary?
Yeah. But the crazy thing is, I think the guy I rolled with this morning was doing that to me. Because I feel like I was in the lava today.
Yeah. What's great about that, the lava game, Gary?
It's great about that game is you learn how to control top position. And really, top position is where you want to be.
Yeah, it's probably the best thing about jiu-jitsu.
Well, besides the health benefits.
Hello, my friends. This is Byron from the editing room. Just got to jump in here and call it. This prank is officially busted. I do want to piece together all the little clumps of Gary getting this prank done to him, and I'll put that in next week's episode. But, when he refers to the time we tried last week as the health benefits, yeah, he knows something's up. So it was a good run while we had it, and I think this one we just played a little bit too loose with trying the floor as lava as being the best part of jiu-jitsu. Yeah, it's all good fun. So next week we'll recap the prank and have fun at Gary's expense. I'll cut you back into the regular part of the show. So I have a off-the-mat lesson that I'd like to kind of drag back to the mat and just have people think about it, I guess, and hear what you guys have to say. Never have snow skied until I think it was last year, and my wife and I decided, hey, let's try this out. So we did, and when you have never done this before, you take a class of how to snow ski, and they literally show you everything, like what the ski is called, this side of it's this, and this part over here is, of course, it sounds like I forgot it all because I probably did, but they get you to where, like, that kindergarten level of class. And then you get on the skis, and they teach you how to walk on the skis or walk with the skis, and how to stand and how to slow yourself down and these sort of things. And I think so much in jiu-jitsu that doesn't happen. And I guess it's not ideal. There's not very many people or clubs that are big enough to have, every Friday is our new person class, and we're going to have 8 people come in and take this class. That's probably not practical. But that you can get parts of this from teammates. So if you see somebody who doesn't know how to tie their belt, go help them out. It'll show them how to tie their belt. If you see somebody who's putting their gi on inside out, or their pants on totally backwards, or they don't understand the string system of how it wraps around in their gi pants. If Gary's got that wrapped around the back of his knee, he probably needs a little bit of help. If Joe literally has his belt tied and part of it's a bow, he needs a little bit of help tying his belt. So it's just a good thing to be that person. Hey, let me help you out here. And not make it a big deal. It's somebody is learning how to do jiu-jitsu that has never learned how. I'm learning how to ski. I don't know how to stand on these things. They're very slick on this ice, this snow, and I'm getting ready to fall over all the time. And I don't know what this is called. I don't know how the boot attaches or how to detach from the ski. All of it's foreign. And if you're new to jiu-jitsu, all of it's foreign. And I think it's a thing that most clubs aren't big enough to have a class like this where they take you to the kindergarten level and teach you the real basic stuff. But it can be done a few minutes each class, especially the first few, with a couple of teammates that say, hey, check this out right here. Or, actually, sorry, your gi, those are your gi pants. Take those off of your head or whatever. Just to help them out with the very basic stuff. You see somebody who's new making that mistake, help them, and they'll be grateful.
I like what you said, Byron. My first day of ever showing up for jiu-jitsu, or it must have been my second day because the first day I didn't have a gi, but second day I went and bought a gi, never had put one on before, had no clue how to tie the belt, and I just remember going into class and just feeling so awkward that my belt's wrong and everything, and I just wish I had somebody there to teach me how to tie it. And, when you're feeling awkward, especially in one of your first classes, it's not going to be a good day. And, you don't want that person to feel awkward. But another thing it made me think of is Byron. Byron always helps out the new person. Byron is very good at that. You are probably one of the best people I know, Byron, who've taken time out of your rolling to help out the new person. And, you did it again today. Today we had a new person show up, never had trained before, very first day, and kind of crazy. He used to be a coworker of mine, and I know that guy. Where do I know him from? But and one of his friends brought him who didn't really know that much. But Byron showed up about an hour late, as he always does, so he can duck me. But I noticed after Byron rolls for 30 minutes, he goes over and devotes his last 30 minutes to that brand new guy, just showing him stuff. Byron didn't know him. wasn't even introduced to him because Byron showed up late when he was ducking me, so he didn't get a chance to, get introduced to him. But he still went over there, jumped in the scrum there, broke the guys up training, but just sat there and devoted time showing him basic stuff. And when I talked to the new guy afterwards, tried to introduce him to Byron or everything, he's like, man, Byron, he was just so appreciative of Byron taking time to show him stuff. So, Byron, you don't just talk about it, you actually walk the walk. So great job.
Walking the walk, talking about ducking you, if it walks like a duck and talks like a duck. I can't duck underneath Gary because he's lower than a snake's belly. He's playing hot lava and he's got his shoulders pinned to the mat and they're burning.
That's a little inside joke. Byron and I having fun with some guy trying to sell us geese, wholesale geese.
But they're cheap, my friend.
The price was lower than a snake's belly.
Gary, what do we have for the quote of the week?
This week we have a quote from Seth Godin. Seth says, instead of wondering when your next vacation is, you ought to set up a life that you don't need to escape from. And that is incredible advice. I mean, how many people do we see? It just seems like just dragging along, not really 100% happy in their life. They need a vacation, to escape from work, to escape from life. And, I don't know. I don't know if that's would be a life I would want to have, where I just look forward to that, 2 weeks of vacation I get, and the rest of the week is just terrible. And, one thing that, helps me where I have a life I don't need to escape from is jiu-jitsu. And I know last week, I was kind of talking about the benefits of jiu-jitsu, and we were talking about health and everything. But, just the camaraderie. I make so many friends from jiu-jitsu, and I can have the worst day at work and really, should I even be bothered by anything that happens at work? Jiu-jitsu has just taught me not to sweat the small stuff. And then when I do go to jiu-jitsu, when I am sweating the small stuff, which I still do from time to time, I forget about everything. I go to jiu-jitsu and I'm having such a good time. And even when I'm done with jiu-jitsu, those endorphins are just flying, and I forget about everything that happened during my day. I'm much more happier. My wife sees it. She's seen times where, I'm aggravated or I'm not having the greatest day, and she's telling me I need to go train. And she understands what jiu-jitsu does for me, and, makes me that much better of a person. But we are going to have so much more fun in life if we just set up a life that we don't need we don't need a vacation to escape from. We, set it up where we have fun. And, even at my work, like I wish I could win the lottery. And that's one of the reasons we'll talk about later that you should join Patreon, because you got a better chance to win the lottery. But, I really like the people I work with. I have a fun time at work. It's kind of almost like my jiu-jitsu guys. It's that camaraderie. And it's I think I got a pretty darn good life where, I always like vacations, but, it's not something that I'm, just count down the days for.
Well, Gary, why most people need a vacation is because life is stressful. It's just a fact. Life is stressful.
True.
You got bills to pay. You got maybe raising kids, and they're ornery like mine were. But you know what else is a known fact? Choking people relieves tension.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great stress relief. So if you could regularly get together with a group of people and choke them, then you don't get stressed out. You don't need that vacation so much.
Yeah, and there's really only two places you could do this, and one of them is jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, because if you just choke a random person out on the street, you're going to have to listen to my audiobook from episode 247.
Yeah, the street was what I was talking about, Gary. I was talking about your other club that you go to on the weekends.
You mean the David Karchmer Club?
But yeah, I think this is an interesting quote. And, he says, set up a life you don't need to escape from. Putting things like jiu-jitsu in your life is making that step. If you do, we all have things that happen that aren't ideal. Some people's jobs are super stressful or not enjoyable at all. Start setting up the life that doesn't make you want to escape all the time. and you may not be able to escape your job right away and do something. Maybe you need the income way more than a lower paying job that has no stress. So you're kind of stuck there. But setting up the life that you don't want to escape from is going to jiu-jitsu. It's making new friends. It's hanging out with your family. Hopefully they're not what you want to escape from anyway. But set that up to where when you go on vacation, it's really nice. But when I get home from vacation myself, I miss it. I'm coming back to something. I'm not like leaving vacation and disappointed. I'm like, yeah, we're back home now. We get to do this and this, and part of the excitement of coming back home is getting back on the mats and seeing my friends on the mats and getting back to work and seeing what's happened since I was gone and catching up with the people at work.
I got a great idea. I know you and Becky were getting ready to go on vacation, and you just said, you look more forward to coming back. So I think what we're going to do is, instead of you guys going on vacation, Joe and I will take your plane tickets and your hotel rooms. You ready for a vacation, Joe?
Well, not really, but I care about Byron enough, and since he'd rather be home, I'll make the sacrifice and go.
Good job, Joe.
No,
way to have his back, literally.
Literally.
You guys are looking out for me. I do enjoy going on vacation. I get excited about it, but I don't dread coming home either.
No, yeah, that's vacations are great. Like Joe says, there's a little bit of stress, and you're gonna relieve a little bit of stress, but you're gonna have a great time. But yeah, it's fun to come home. You've got your family, you've got your jiu-jitsu family, you've got it's your work family, and you can just, if you make it where you're happy, it's gonna be a good time.
You're gonna be happy.
You're gonna be happy. Let's turn that frown upside down.
That is awesome, Gary.
Yep.
That's what you do when Gary inverts.
Yeah, you know what else is awesome? David Karchmer. Let's get on to the interview with David Karchmer.
He is the most interesting grappler in the world.
Once he rolled with Ike Turner on the river, inspiring Tina to sing. He bought a gi online and paid for it entirely with pennies. Pennies that he won as prize money from the Abe Lincoln Invitational. He is the only person to win 2 matches in a row via wedgie.
I don't always listen to podcasts, but when I do, I prefer the BJJ Brick Podcast. Stay sweaty, my friends.
All right, my friends, I'm happy to bring the grappling referee, David Karchmer, back to the BJJ Brick Podcast. David, welcome back to the show.
Byron, thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you back, and we do have a lot of things to talk about in the world of being a grappling referee. Could you just introduce yourself a little bit? Kind of, I know you've officiated a lot of matches in a lot of different organizations, but just give us a little personal history about you up to your website or Facebook page, which you have going on.
Sure. Let's see, this will be my 19th year of training in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I'm actually scheduled to get my second degree black belt in June. So around, I don't know when we're getting together, June 2nd, I think. So it's been 6 years as a black belt, actually. As a referee, I've been reffing since 2008. And I just did my 81st tournament, I believe, my last weekend. It's right around 81. So I'm guesstimating if you do about, 50, let's say 40, 50 matches a tournament, I'm probably looking in excess of 3,500, 4,000 matches that I've officiated. So I feel I've, developed a certain amount of experience that and gone through the gyrations of a long, a 10-year period as a referee. And, the whole point of being a referee was really to give back to the sport. I had a bad experience early on as a competitor, which compelled me to be a referee. So not just being a referee and giving back to the community as an official, but also I'm trying to educate fellow referees, competitors, coaches about rules, about tournaments, about officiating, and hopefully just elevate the whole sport in general when it comes to the sport side. We've seen a lot of evolution in the way tournaments are run, both from a size and scale to rule sets to formats. So it's been a really interesting period. And like I said, I just like to share that. And my vehicle for sharing that information has been my website, thegrapplingreferee.com, or the Grappling Referee on Facebook. And I try to keep people up to date with things that I see that are out there related specifically to tournaments and officiating, and also talk about things that are, what I like to call gray areas or between the lines of the written rule book, and really look at things that we don't have a clear answer and we can't all easily agree on. Those are the most interesting parts of officiating to me.
Yeah, and I encourage everybody, I'll put links in the show notes, but go find you on Facebook and check out the website. A lot of good content on there as well. But you seem to about every week post a video on Facebook asking us, the audience, how would you score this, or what would you think this is, and really putting us in this spot of trying to become a referee and just seeing, well, what would I do in this issue? And they're always kind of that gray area, or make you think about it. And if you're at all interested in competing or just watching competitive jiu-jitsu, if you understand the rules, it's going to be a lot more enjoyable. If you understand the rules as a competitor, you're going to compete more effectively. And so I really like what you're doing on Facebook with those videos and asking us questions.
Well, the best part of that, or what validates the questions I'm asking, is I get different answers on everything. So that alone tells me that I'm keying in on portions that aren't clear within the grappling community, that we don't necessarily see as black and white, and that we have to collaborate and come up with what the correct answers either are or should be. So despite the fact everybody isn't in unison every time I post something, that's actually a positive sign for me that there's more to talk about.
Yeah, I think there will always be something to talk about. Just the nature of sports, things are happening that are hard to predict and to deal with, and situations come up, and anymore they'll be on video, and we can learn from them. And that's what you're doing that, and that's awesome.
No, I appreciate it, and I encourage anybody that wants, to share their input or insight. It's a collective, like a collaborative thing that I'm kind of moderating. I'm not declaring myself the expert, and I know the answer. In most cases, I'm saying, what do you think the right answer should be, and trying to get a consensus. And then if there is some kind of vehicle in the future where I actually have to make that kind of decision as a referee, I'm better educated, or I can educate others that may ask me the questions. So it's a really collaborative effort.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you talked a little bit about gray areas. People may not be able to really understand what you mean by that. Talking about, is this 2 points or did they get control? Do you have an example, maybe something that you've done fairly recently where it was kind of a gray area and you had to make that judgment call?
Well, I would say yes. I just I refed in the past weekend. This is obviously we're talking in mid-May.
Yeah.
I was going to say that not to name something specific, something that doesn't jump out at me, but there's concepts around how to enforce the border that I think are very questionable and not always written well. We see some tournaments allow a wide berth. There seems to be a set ring, but guys seem to be finishing their action in other rings. Other times, guys are very rigidly kept within borders. And these are the kinds I think border enforcement is probably one of the things that I see the least consistency on from tournament to tournament, or even within set tournaments. And the thing that's interesting about border enforcement as a rule is, if you think about sub-only as a tournament format, one of the only things the referee has to do is maintain a proper border. And a lot of tournaments we see, if we get into like professional events like EBI or 5 Super League or such, a lot of these things, Fight to Win comes to mind. They're on a stage or an elevated platform, or they're hardwood floors outside the ring. And a lot of times the rings are enormous even, they're 30 by 30 and guys still end up out of bounds. But if you don't know in advance or haven't articulated what will happen, a lot of times there can be inconsistencies with how it's enforced, particularly with things like submissions that go out of bounds. I've seen those kinds of things happen and be handled a lot of different ways. So border enforcement is one that comes to mind as an often gray area from tournament to tournament.
Yeah, that's an interesting concept of border enforcement. And okay, when are you out of bounds? When do we get you back into the middle of your mat? Sometimes it feels like, as a spectator, it depends on what's happening on the mat that's next to them. Is that true, or am I just kind of like if it's kind of in between matches and there's nothing going on, they'll let it go on the mat a little bit more sometimes, and sometimes it's like that doesn't matter at all?
I think it depends, and the reason I say it depends is, if you look at the mats for different tournaments, the ring size is in some cases generous or what appears to be ample. Other cases, you see the way the box is designed, it's very small, and you almost have to go outside it to have a realistic match, especially when you get bigger guys in there and they're active. So I think the way the tournament designs their quote-unquote border is important. Some tournaments are very diligent about the specifications of their mats. Others are not so. So it's going to vary from tournament to tournament. It's also a lot of times varies from ref to ref if border enforcement is not something that's written into the rules. If it doesn't say something like, when 2/3 of the bodies are outside the fighting area, this will happen, and nothing is mentioned, then sometimes you get things that are close to the border, you get things that are on the border, you get things that are over the border, still continuing, and it can vary from ring to ring. I happen to be, myself, a strict border guy.
Okay.
I think it makes the most sense from a rules perspective to say, let me define how much of their bodies can be out of bounds, and it's usually something like 2/3 or half their bodies out of bounds, before I say the action has to stop, and then we have to resolve whatever position they're in a certain way. And it's usually a few different scenarios. One is they're in a, let's call it a neutral position, let's say closed guard, with 2/3 of their bodies off the mat. Very easy to stop them, move them into the center, recreate the action. Same scenario, 2/3 of the body outside, but there's a submission on. Okay, now wait a second. Do you want to recreate submissions or you don't want to recreate submissions? That tends to be bad business. So if we don't recreate submissions, do we bring them to the center and put them in a different neutral position? Do we stand them up? Do we give a score for the submission attempt and move on? Suppose their bodies are 2/3, but it's dynamic action when you stop it. There's movement. We can't really see a position. How do we treat that? So there's a lot of different scenarios that have to be addressed. And if you don't write it down or express to the refs how it's going to be done, it gets different. It gets done differently by every ref in every ring. So that can be a problem with consistency. Now, it may work during the course of a given match. The guy made a decision and it worked out for that match. But when coaches or competitors or spectators look at one ring and they see one course of action, then they see a similar action treated differently next to it, that's when people get upset that things are not being done, quote unquote, fairly. And you have to say, well, how do I make it consistent so everybody is officiating it the same way? And the answer is you gotta write it down. You gotta define what it is, and you gotta stick to that. And when you do stuff like that, you make a very thick rule book. And, if you look at, for instance, the Federation rule book, 40 some odd pages with pictures, that's an elaborate, detailed rule book. You go online for some tournaments and it's like, part of the web page. It's like not even a one pager. So obviously that kind of tournament is just not going to be as detailed to the referee about how to go about officiating. And it means that the officials are left to their own design a lot of times. And that's how you see that inconsistency or people not understanding why they did things a certain way.
Yeah.
And these all speak to customer satisfaction, right? That's what I call it. But it means, are the competitors, coaches, and spectators unhappy? That's the customer satisfaction part. So if we're going to keep them happy, we should tell them in advance how it's going to be. And then when it happens, that's how we treat it.
Is part of the border enforcement just kind of given as like referee discretion, like do what you think is best, or is it just so vague in some of the rules that just ends up what it ends up being?
Well, again, I contend that it's something substantial enough as and I'm a border enforcement guy. I believe it's important. So any organizations that I've worked with that either follow the federation typically, or I've helped fabricate their set of rules, and in doing so, I will always put a section of how to treat the border. So for my own preference as a referee, I don't want to work for an organization that has a lot of open interpretation.
Okay.
So, and again, that's great that you want to trust your referee, but I don't think it gives them the proper guidance, and I don't think it sends the right message to people that are watching the tournament throughout the day when they see inconsistencies in behavior from the officials. That, I think, sends the wrong message.
Just a couple more things on border enforcement.
Sure.
How much of it is relevant on what's happening next to the border, I guess, across the border? If you've got two lightweights and then on the mat next to you are two ultra heavyweights battling for a takedown, does that kind of pull into like a judgment? Well, you know what, they're halfway off the border. Typically I would not, but I don't want these guys to get landed on by these bigger grapplers.
Well, I don't question for a second that a referee who is focused primarily on the safety of the competitors has to be aware of the surroundings, which includes other rings. So if I was going to start a match and I see two heavyweights flying into the table next to me, I'm aware already, hey, wait a second, these guys could end up in my lap. So I'm already attuned to the fact that I have to protect my ring, so to speak. And a lot of times you'll see referees, we kind of sacrifice our bodies. You put your body between your competitors and the competitors in the ring next to you. And I will admit to paying a price for that at times, having, two heavyweights from the other ring fly into me. But you hope that your fellow referee is as diligent as you. And if he realizes he's got a wild bunch, he's able to corral them and keep them within their given space. And that's what works best. I'm disappointed when I look and I see, two competitors a ring over finishing something. I just don't see a reason for it. It stops the other ring. It's dangerous because it means they could have plowed into people that were there. So no, it doesn't make a difference to me. I always assume that all the rings are full and we treat them the same way, whether they're full or empty. Is there a rule or there isn't? Because when you start treating things differently based on circumstances, that speaks to the question of fairness.
Yeah. And treating things the same and wanting that organization to have the rules given to you right away or like written down, these are what the rules, that's very helpful. Another thing I see on the border is some of these events that have, one match at a time and we're going to put it online and everyone can watch it live. Some of them have like a cliff. I mean, there's a 4-foot drop off of the side of the border, and there's tables and chairs and people down there. And I think that that's also a big factor as far as the safety of the grapplers and the spectators. And like you say, customer satisfaction. You don't want somebody who came to watch a grappling event end up getting landed on by somebody.
I encourage something, regardless of whether there's a platform or not, of something I call it corralling. So, a lot of times you'll see a referee stand in a corner and he'll just kind of let the competitors roam as they will, and he'll yell to them what to do to stop or what have you. And my feeling is that keeping them in the center promotes the right behavior. It promotes the clock staying on because they haven't gone out of bounds, and it promotes action because now that they have the space to work, they can work. So what I'm always doing is, and encouraging referees that work with me, is to circle. And as they're backing out, I'm blocking them from exiting the ring, and I'm saying circle in. And most often I find that competitors are mindful, especially with me as a barrier and the verbal warning, that you should maintain something, your takedown efforts or what have you inside the given space. Now, granted, there are rule sets that don't permit the referee to be so vocal or participate in that way. You're not going to see the federation say circle in. They're going to stand in the corner and they're just going to yell parole when you go flying out of bounds. And the assumption there is you're just going to stop. But again, I'm a little more proactive.
Yeah.
I'm a little more hard border guy. So when I have the ability to use my discretion, I'm trying to push guys in the middle the whole time because I want them to maximize the amount of time they get to fight in the given space. So I think there are techniques you can use to try to encourage the right behavior and not let it get crazy.
Yeah, and you see somebody kind of with their backs to the border, and the other guy shoots like a double leg and pushes them off the border or off the cliff or whatever there is, or into the next match. That's all bad news.
I was going to say that at the very least, you've usually got a table on one side.
Yeah.
Okay? At the very least, you've got the table. So you've got to protect them from the table. Secondly is very often on the edges, these are in gymnasium floors. So off the mat is hardwood.
Yeah.
So sometimes there's barriers up. Sometimes there are metal barriers just outside the ring, not something you want to go off the mat and fly into. So even without the platform, there are dangers. You don't want to go into the other ring and land on another person, step on an ankle, those kinds of things. So there's plenty of pitfalls, but yeah, I would say, and a 4+ foot platform is probably takes it to a new level. Now, granted, what's ironic about that is usually those formats that have the platforms are like, 30+ foot size rings, 30 by 30s. So you'd figure guys would have enough space. I try when I'm working those events to do the same kind of corralling where you're circling, you're blocking the edge, and you're encouraging them to go back into the middle. But we did have somebody, I did a pro event last year or the year prior, and two guys, one guy shot a double leg and they both, boom, right off the side. The interesting part, as scary as it was, they bounced right back up. They bounced up, jumped back onto the platform and got back to business. But we actually changed the format. It must have been the year prior. It must have been 2016 because in 2017 we changed the format so that it was on a flat floor without the platform for that reason. It was just much safer. Yeah.
And about the flying off something, we've all been walking somewhere, maybe on ice or falling down, and people around, you get up right away. I'm okay. And it's like, no, you're not. Ow, I'm really kind of sore. Two competitors are likely to pop up even if they're not doing super great and at least feel it for a few seconds. I'm good. Actually, that kind of hurt or whatever. Having officiated thousands of matches, I kind of want to just get your gut feeling about a submission. It's headed off the border. You have to stop it and restart it in the middle. Who does that give the advantage to? The guy defending or the guy on offense?
Let me dig a little deeper into your question so I understand it correctly. So you're referring to a submission attempt that is going out of bounds, and your question is whether it's the fact that it's stopped out of bounds. Is that an advantage for?
No, not like an advantage point, but you have me in a triangle. You have me in a triangle. I'm trying to work out of this triangle. I'm trying, and I happen to just kind of end up out of bounds, and the referee says stop. Let's go back into the middle and reset the triangle. Does that typically help the person playing offense or defense, or is it pretty much neutral?
Well, in my opinion, that should never happen.
Okay.
And I'll explain why. And a triangle is a great example. So if I set a triangle on you, Byron, and then I release it, and then I set it again, I would say, and let's say it's, a properly set triangle, 1 inch could separate, 1 inch on your carotid artery could be the difference between you surviving the rest of the match and going to sleep in 10 seconds.
Absolutely.
1 inch.
Yeah.
Right? No question. So to reset a triangle, bad business. Bad business. What are you going to do? Restart with the guy's arm extended? Are you going to put somebody in a heel hook position? I've talked before about, if you recall, the David Avelin Rusumar Palhares ADCC match where they restarted the heel hook.
Oh, gosh.
I mean, Yeah. So when you think about things like that, and that's probably the greatest example of why you should never do that. So my feeling is that restarting submissions is bad business. So typically what happens is this. You should have a tournament should have a rule mechanism so that there's some compensation for the fact that somebody had a submission, but they couldn't complete it in bounds. Now, the assumption is that they're not the attacker is not moving the person out of bounds intentionally. It's just a circumstance of however the submission is going out that they end up out of bounds. So we're not looking for circumstances where either the attacker or the defender is intentionally escaping or going out of bounds. So we'll assume it just happens to work out that way. I get a triangle, but I'm on the border out of bounds. If you're going to separate somebody and stand them up, or create another position that's not a submission, you have to give them some compensation. So it's got to be a score. Typically, a 2 points is given as compensation for a lock submission that is out of bounds. So I think those pieces should go together universally. I can't speak for all tournaments, but I think if you're just unlocking triangles out of bounds and standing people up, you're not going to find too many happy competitors in those kinds of tournaments.
Does it make a difference if the defending competitor drags it out of bounds on purpose and it looks pretty deliberate?
Yeah, I mean, that's a disqualifiable offense.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to use the ring, the border as an escape mechanism, kind of like think of pro wrestling, throwing your hand on the ring or they used to do that in Pancrase, didn't they? They used to be able to put their hand on the ring.
Yeah, or on
grab
the
rope.
Yeah.
Grab the rope and you can escape. Yeah. I mean, if you wanted to do that, you could, but I'm just not aware of any competitive grappling that involves that or anybody that would find that interesting or amusing.
Yeah. So we were talking a little bit before we started recording, and the topic of getting submitted to something that's not a actual submission, and how that comes up, and it happens to probably more often than we would think. Something that's not actually a choke or a joint lock ends up getting somebody to tap, and I'd like to just kind of hear your thoughts on that and where that is in the sport.
Well, I mean, you got a couple of things to consider. So of course, there's a set of legal techniques that when applied, would result in a tap that ends the match. There's also a set of known techniques that are considered illegal. That if a competitor applies those and the opponent taps, it could result in a disqualification. And then there's, I guess, a whole category of things that maybe shouldn't be considered submissions, something you would teach somebody, but nonetheless, they cause the person to submit. So, one of the examples I gave was a rear naked choke across the jaw. Now, a lot of people defend a rear naked by tucking their chin. And I think if you've spent any time and you've had someone apply a rear naked on your chin, you'll find that you will either give up your neck or you will tap because it will break your jaw. So that in itself is not a rear naked choke, right? It's not a strangle. You're not on the carotid arteries. You're compressing the jaw. So that's not really what we teach people in jiu-jitsu, but you can finish a match with it. So how do you treat it? So there's a whole, I also gave the example of, hey, if I give you a forearm across the jaw also, just maybe a shoulder, maybe I do what we call, smash the head. Shoulder pressure. I got news for you. You can put somebody out or tap them from that. It's not a submission move per se. It's not something you would probably teach somebody on how to end a fight, but it could certainly result in a tap. So you got to kind of be up to date on where those spots are that are not typical submissions, but result in a tap. Another spot that comes up a lot, and I think of kids, is Kisagatami. The natural reaction, I think, for kids is when they get the head and the arm, they pull up on the head, which is compressing down onto the chest and cranking the neck. Now, the intention is as a hold, not as a finish, but I'm telling you, 9 times out of 10, when kids do this, the kid on the bottom starts to cry because you hurt his neck, and neck cranks are not allowed. but it's not really a neck crank because it's a positional hold. So then you get into this quandary of, okay, how do I foresee this coming in all my future matches? And I can do something that is something that is fair to both competitors. And something that I may do is, in the case of children, I try to be proactive about things that I recognize kids often tap or just cry from. And if I see a case of Gatami like that, I'll immediately say, don't pull up on the head. Again, this may not fit, federation type rule sets because we don't give advice to competitors on how to fight. It's not something that's part of their rule set. A lot of other tournaments have the flexibility with, communication between the competitors and the referee, and it's not considered taboo. You just, I think, have to get experience on what to look for, where these dangerous areas are, or you kind of learn as you go. Like you'll see a tap and or you may not even see the tap as a ref. You'll just see the two competitors separate at a point where you didn't think that there was a reason for a tap. And you'll go, what happened? It would be like, oh, he tapped. And I'll be like, oh, what happened? He goes, oh, he was really heavy on my chest. Okay. All right. He was heavy on your chest. You tapped. So, it comes from unexpected areas. And if you're looking specifically for a submission that and when you see an innocuous position where it just looks like a hold down or smothering, you have to be mindful. This guy may need to be rescued down there. You don't know what his experience with is, what his comfort level is, what he thinks he should tap to, what his teacher has instructed him to do. So you can't snooze just because you don't see a bona fide sub attempt going on, because there may be a tap.
Yeah. Or the guy might have damaged ribs or something he's worried about protecting. And
right, an injury, right, exactly. An injury you're unaware of. It's not, not something that there's telltale signs. Sure, and he could be sensitive, and the minute somebody gets side mount, he's going to tap. So, you just got to be aware of those kinds of things and make sure that they comply with whatever the allowable techniques are for that given tournament, that, it was on the up and up.
When is it appropriate to talk to the referee?
I would say a rule of thumb would be when the referee asks you a question or speaks to you.
Okay.
And the second safe point would be if there is a safety issue, like he's asleep or his arm is broken or, something related to safety.
Yeah.
It's hard to condemn. If the referee, for instance, doesn't know that the guy's unconscious and you do, I think it behooves you as a good sportsman to let him know in whatever way possible without penalty. So I would say those are the two safest, and those would probably keep you safe even at the federation level where there is no communications. So if you're spoken to and if there's a safety issue, a serious safety issue. But, like I said, not everybody's as uptight as the federation about communicating with referees. But just be mindful, and I think if you watch the tournament, you can get kind of a sense or a vibe about how strict they are about those kinds of things. But honestly, other than the federation, most tournaments are not that uptight about communication. Now, listen to me. I don't mind communication with somebody if they say a thing or two here and there. But if you're going to lecture me about my scoring, then I'm going to tell you to shut up and penalize you, because I'm not putting up with that. So if you're going to be, having conversations with the referee about his job, I would discourage that highly as well. I don't think anybody's going to look favorable at that. That's what your coach yelling at me is for.
Yeah, so leave that to the coach. You've got a person in front of you to work with.
Let the coach berate me. You tell your coach that I'm an idiot, and then he tells me I'm an idiot, and we'll do it that way, by proxy.
The safety issue is a big deal, because there are times when even the referee's paying close attention. Your choke better than anybody. If you've got this particular choke that you do, it's locked in. If he just kind of went a little bit limp, or if you felt his arm pop, and it's you felt it. And so the referee can't have that sort of contact or knowledge So yeah, the idea of protecting that person or letting the referee know what's happening as far as he's asleep. That's it.
Well, you've brought something up interesting, and I do have a kind of an anecdote about it because you've raised the slippery slope. So you've raised the point between correctly finishing a match and sportsmanlike conduct, and I'll tell you how. So let's say in your good conscience you extend an armbar and you hear crunchy noises and you know you're breaking stuff in there and this guy's not tapping. So in your conscience you say, I refuse to destroy this guy's arm, and you let go and you say, hey, it's broken. While that is, your altruism is to be respected, that may not necessarily be something within the confines of the rules that is in your purview to do. So you have to be mindful as a competitor that while safety is paramount for both competitors, nobody wants to hurt the other person. We all have to go to work the next day or school or whatever. You have to be mindful that this is really the referee's responsibility, is to be in a good position to see what's going on and be proactive about handling it or addressing it. But also the thing that you raised that's interesting is about children or minors, under 18 versus adults, and how I would treat them. I typically would rescue a child by saying, I've seen enough, stop. That arm is extended, and I will rescue a child from themselves because I'm not confident that they necessarily are able to tap or know that they're being or they know that they're stuck in a position they will not escape safely. Versus an adult who basically signed a waiver and said, hey, I didn't tap, I don't care if he breaks my arm. If that guy wants to go like that, then I'm okay with it. But for the other competitor to take it upon himself and say, I broke it, the match is over, that's not really the safety issue I'm talking about. And something did come up exactly like that. It was a females match. It was one of my referees explaining it to me, and this creates a quandary a lot. It's also like a missed tap. So I believe it was an arm bar, and the girl on the bottom that had the arm bar released it, and the other girl just kind of stopped and stood still, and then the other girl just kind of released and got up. And the referee's like, whoa, what's going on? She goes, oh, I think I broke her arm. And the other girl's like, no, it's not broken. And the ref's like, well, wait, did you tap? No, I didn't tap. And it's like, okay, now how do we fix this? The clock is running. A competitor made an arbitrary decision for safety reasons to stop the match. The other competitor contests it completely. And I already mentioned we don't recreate arm bars. So how do you fix something like that? Well, if you've never thought about it, that creates a little bit of a quandary that people can argue. How are you going to put this back together? And, I won't go into the details of all the things you have to do to maybe figure that out unless you want to, but that can create a situation based on that slippery slope you described where the competitors themselves become the arbiter of what's safe or not.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I didn't my initial visual of letting the referee know, hey, this is breaking, is still in the position. There's noises happening, still in the full lockdown arm bar, and it's kind of disfigured. And I don't know, like you said, I guess with adults, it's your arm. You let that roll a little bit longer, let them do their thing. And with minors, you want to jump in there, and I guess they don't really understand the actual damage that's happening to their arm.
Well, I mean, just to put it in perspective, the point of grappling as a sport, pretty much across the board, is submission. Okay. So if a referee is not aware of a submission going on, there's really a problem.
Yeah.
And when it comes to a child, if they're not only aware, but very close, like hands-on close to actually rescue a limb from being damaged, then there's also a problem. They're not taking the proper care. So I'm going to have to say that, at an adult level, I should be watching someone in a lockdown armbar knowing that they are risking serious injury. And although I could make a case that the rules claim that I have the discretion to stop anyone, in fact, in the rule books I've written, I always put that the referee has final discretion for any safety issue. That leaves me the discretion, but that's not necessarily something you want to enforce that way on adults versus children. I'll give you an example. We were doing a black belt final match, and I think it was for money. It was probably for $1,000. And so obviously stakes there, right? The whole place is watching. We might even stopped everything. We did a 3-referee system. I was one of the 3 refs. I was one of the corner refs. So there was another head referee and another ref in the seat across from me. And obviously in a 3-referee system, we serve as a double-checking mechanism for the head referee. So he runs it, he scores it, but if there's something we feel that he either missed or we disagree with, we can vote by standing up and signaling or gesturing what we believe to be correct. And if we have a majority that votes against him, he is overruled. He will look to us, and then he will follow whatever our direction of the majority is. So it becomes a collective officiating, and it makes it, you put 3 eyes basically on one match. So we're watching the match, and competitor A gets competitor B in a very tight armbar, and this guy is stuck, and the arm is locked out, and you can see, even though he's moving his wrist around and his elbow, that he is doing damage to it. But he is not tapping, and he looks like he is in it to get out of it. And all of a sudden, stop. The referee stops the match, and I was watching very clearly, and I'm sure I didn't see a tap. So I walked over to him immediately and said, "Why did you stop?" And he goes, "I think he broke that guy's arm." And I said, "Well, so what?" I go, "We don't stop matches for adults." And he goes, "Oh, okay. What do you want to do?" So at this point, the guys had stopped the armbar, stood up. No way to recreate it in a million years. And you had a guy almost finishing the match that was interrupted. So the only thing I could come up with to reconcile it was to give him 2 points and start them standing, much like if he had achieved that same position but was out of bounds. As karma would have it, he went on to score and solidify his win by getting additional points, and because I think when we gave him the 2 points, it was tied. He ended up getting back points and winning the money. So it was kind of like a grappling justice. But at the moment, I got to tell you, when he stopped that match, I was like, oh boy, what are we going to do about this? Because you get people on both sides. One guy says, "Wait, he didn't tap." The other guy says, "Oh, come on, he broke his arm." So everybody's voting for their guy. There's really no right answer. And the rules were, we don't stop it for adults, so you shouldn't have stopped it. So, like I said, it created a quandary there for a couple of minutes, and I did the best I could, and honestly, it worked out, and I got no complaints after the fact. But, that's what happens.
It was kind of like the guy was grappling with one arm. I mean, he got damaged in the process. And
absolutely. But, that was his prerogative, and he if you want to do that, I've heard a gamut of things where people will say, "Oh, I don't tap to wrist locks." Oh, okay. Some people don't feel stuff. I don't know. Have you ever watched the Meow Brothers get ankle locked? They don't tap. They don't tap. Imagine if you stopped every one of their matches that they got stuck in something. A lot of those they go on to win, but you're looking at it like, oh my God, somebody should stop that. And then you see them walking fine. So it's hard to predict people's pain tolerance. It's hard to predict their natural ability to defend. So it's in my opinion, if I leave it up to you as a competitor to make that decision as an adult, that's my best course of action. You're going to tell me when you want to stop, unless you're unconscious. Then I need to rescue you because you no longer have the ability to rescue yourself. So, like I said, I use unconsciousness as really the big safety issue because that means somebody can't defend themselves. I
don't watch a ton of MMA, but I've seen, some stoppages in the UFC. Something breaks, they stop it. What's the difference there? I mean, it seems like the UFC is a little bit more on the extreme end of what's allowed to happen and what's happening to the competitors, and in that they're stopping it. I don't know, maybe they don't do that anymore, but they're stopping it when something breaks. And in grappling, it tends to be with adults letting it go.
No, the reason I think that it's different is because the arsenal that MMA brings is considerably greater than merely grappling. And I think you have a much better chance of perhaps defending yourself with an injury against a grappler than you do for a guy that's going to pound your head in or kick your head in. I feel because there's less tools that you may have a possibility of surviving. And I'll point to perhaps the most glaring example of a serious injury that resulted in a win, which would be the 2004 Worlds with Jacare against Roger Gracie. He breaks his arm, and then he managed to hold him off. Granted, he was given a lot of latitude about his stalling and backing out of the ring, but he actually went on to win with a broken arm. I mean, he literally couldn't use it.
Yeah, it was dangling there, and he was kind of avoiding getting tangled up anymore.
So were you going to be the guy to tell Jacare you're done? I wasn't.
Yeah, that's interesting, and that stage it made for an amazing match.
But also, we're not doctors, right?
Yeah.
So I can see a locked out armbar, just like I can see Meow's foot in a toe hold, and I'm like, okay, physically that's not possible. But yet he survives, he's expressionless, and he walks on it fine. So if we're talking about removing subjectivity from officiating, then making me a doctor on top of it is not going to be the answer. The best barometer of someone's ability to continue to fight is themselves.
All right. Hey, I did want to ask you a couple of questions about, from a competitor's standpoint, what are some of the common rules or the more common mistakes people make in not understanding a rule, or kind of a blunder that they might make during a match that would be just good advice? Hey, you're going to compete. Remember, this is going to be a factor.
Well, there's one thing I would say universally that competitors should understand in 2018 and beyond that goes across all rule sets, and that is you must control a position or action to receive a score. So when I pass a guard, or I sweep, or I do a takedown, and I get a finishing position for that score, the rule of thumb is typically they say 3 seconds, but I call it a 3 count. And the reason is because if the referee's counting in his head, then that's not seconds, right? Nobody's that precise. It's his 3 count. So I call it a referee 3 count. Now, don't get me wrong. Some organizations may put different numbers on it. They could say a 2-second control, or 3-second, or 4-second. Most commonly, it's a 3-second control, or what I call a 3 count of control. So you should, as a competitor, be aware that if you want to be properly compensated for your progression through the scoring system, you got to stick your positions. And a lot of times I see guys do something and then they go to something else so quickly that they end up not getting a full score. They either get no score because there's no advantages, or they only get an advantage because they didn't take the time to stick the move, so to speak. It's kind of like in gymnastics, stick the landing. So that's probably my biggest advice that I could give people across the board. If I had to think of other things, I think it's a mistake for anyone that's competing not to read the rule book cover to cover and assume that the rules that they know from other tournaments are the same. I mean, granted, if you read a rule book once, are you an expert on the rules? You can go in there and manipulate it? Probably not. But I don't see how you can expect to do well or be within the rules if you don't take the time to do it. So it's kind of something you have to do, but you can only get so much out of it. a lot of people get ingrained by doing certain types of tournaments. Like, I travel the country and I do the federation, and I know their rule set inside and out, but I'm going to do, such and such tournament as a warm up, and they go in there and they just assume that everything's the same. It's not. It's probably not. So you're not going to get the same kind of. You shouldn't have the same expectations as you go from one tournament to another. You really should be aware of what the differences are. And I've tried for those organizations that have a different kind of rule set, that maybe we're doing things a little different. I try to highlight those on the tournament's website, in rules meetings with competitors, certainly to the referees. These are the things you need to be most aware of that are different. Otherwise, you just risk, either being disqualified or not getting everything that you're entitled to. So it's foolish not to.
Yeah, that's good advice. Know the rules, and a big part of that is know how long to control somebody. And you're going to have to start training that way. I think when you're at home or at your home gym, training, you may not hold that position for 3 seconds. You may want to transition quicker than that. But when you're trying to get your mind into competing, you need to have that, and so it's a natural thing, not to just to go from one thing to the other to get your points, and you've earned it. Just hold it a little bit longer, and those points can make a big difference.
It's not always natural either. I mean, if you're a submission hunter, for instance, and I can think of a few high-level competitors I consider submission hunters. They're so hungry for the sub that they're blowing through possible scoring because, a guy like Crone Gracie is a great example. I mean, this kid was always looking for subs that he would pass up the scoring opportunities to get to one. And then if you don't get it, sometimes you end up with nothing, and he would lose federation matches for that reason because he didn't capitalize and he went for the kill. So there is a strategy behind it, not just like, getting what you're entitled to. There's literally a strategy sometimes that requires you slow down to be more methodical and work through the progressive scoring system rather than, for instance, be a submission-only minded competitor. And you may have to train differently to think like that, like you're indicating. If you are somebody that's always thinking about subs and not how you got there, then you may have to slow down if you want to get scores and win matches. Otherwise, you'll find that you seem to be dominating people and then ending up losing because they pulled off one score. And you didn't get any full scores for all the stuff you were doing just because you were moving on to the next thing or hunting subs. So there is a strategy behind it for sure. There's a game, if you will, to play. And if you understand the rules, and when I watch people, I know whether they're manipulating the rules. I'm telling you, I can see it very clearly. And that doesn't bother me within it. They're clearly using it as a strategy. Now you can respect that kind of fighter and say, oh, this guy's just doing that, to eke out the win. Or some people say, oh man, he lost the match that he could have won because he didn't play the game. So, each competitor has to figure out what's important to them and what strategy they're going to employ. And I guess if you get to a high enough level or you spend enough time, you may have to employ different strategies against different opponents, at different belt levels or skill levels. It may be a different kind of game. So these are all part of tournament strategy that has to start from an understanding of the rules. I don't see how you can formulate one without it.
It's not a bad sportsmanship to play to the rules. I mean, that's really that's what they're there for, is some sort of framework to work with.
Let me give you for instance.
Okay.
Let me give you for instance. So let's say I score a sweep early on and I'm on top, and now it's my turn to pass the guard, and I know that every 20 seconds the referee is going to call stalling. So what I do is I put my head down on your chest and I put my hands in your armpits and I keep my head down for 15 seconds. I look over, I see the ref look at his watch. I pop up in posture. I try to break the legs open. Oh, I can't. Boom. I drop back down again. Oh, let me count 15 seconds. Is he looking at his watch yet? Oh, look, I'm active there. Those are the kind of games that are legal, but you don't win like a lot of fans.
Yeah.
So it's a strategy, But again, is it a respected strategy, and do you care? So those are just things to keep in mind.
Yeah.
You're playing within the rules, but, not necessarily enviably.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not a great thing to watch either. But as the guy playing guard, it's kind of up to him to figure out how to attack this person, and to deal with somebody who is kind of doing that. And he's going to give you a little bit of something to work with every few seconds so he doesn't get in trouble or get points called against him. But not the most entertaining match to watch when somebody's kind of doing that. I see a lot of times people will get into a position where they basically get the sweep. They're confident with it, and they wait it, and then they'll sweep, and there's only a few seconds left, and they've got the points they needed at the end of the match. And it's kind of amazing to watch a match happen, and it's winding down 2 minutes left, and they're working, and all it is in the last 10 seconds they get their points, and it's just like I don't know. I think that's amazing, and I wish they would have done the sweep earlier to have a better, more exciting match. But I'm sure you see a lot of that as well.
Well, that's one of the biggest complaints of related to advantages, is what high level people playing the a lot of times federation rules. The complaints about advantages were here I'm not even getting a full score. I'm making an attempt at something, and it's deciding the whole match. And in some cases, you got guys doing exactly what you're describing. They're sitting in 50-50. They've gone up and back and forth over and over again, and they're waiting for that last 20 seconds to make the last push up to try to get the sweep. That's one of the reasons the Federation did away with advantages in 50-50, because they saw this game being played of bouncing up and bouncing down, and let me be the last one to bounce up as time stops, and then I get the advantage. I worked for Hicks and Gracie in the Hicks and Gracie Cup last year, and one of his biggest complaints was advantages and how he felt the sport was being manipulated in that way by competitors, where this notion that this was a submission focus had totally faded away to these tiny little increments people were using strategically to win. And, he just thought that was the wrong representation of jiu-jitsu as an art as well as a sport. So, I've been in agreement with, I think, some pretty good authorities on what I feel about advantages, and my feeling is, let's reward people for doing something, not for almost doing something. So,
from the competitor's point of view, I would urge anybody, if you're wanting to make something of this and I don't know, go someplace with it or have a career with this, exciting matches are important. It's good to get a win, but a boring win doesn't get replayed a million times on Facebook. A good match, exciting match, that's what will get eyes on you. And good finishes, these are what make people want to see your matches, not eking out win after eking out win.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that speaks to the reputation of the particular grappler. When we think of people like, Marcelo Garcia, who is always just looking to finish you the whole time. You can just tell watching him. He's looking to finish you, and oh, look, he got more points than you too. But that's part of his mystique, is this fact he was always a gamer. He never was protecting a lead. He was never using gamesmanship or point strategy to beat you. He was trying to use jiu-jitsu to submit you. And then we could list competitors also that are known for eking out, advantage wins. But guess what? The medal is the same color, and they don't dent it because you won by advantage versus won by submission. So it looks the same, and it's really you as your internal barometer has to tell you what kind of competitor you were or how important the medal is to you.
Yeah, but you're not going to sell $20,000 of DVDs of how to get an advantage and win. But if you triangle check everybody, people are going to buy a triangle DVD. If you heel hook everybody, people are going to want to see how you're doing that. And I think from a marketing point of view, there's a big value in having exciting matches.
Yes and no, but people open schools on the premise of gold medals.
Yeah, that's true.
They do DVDs on the premise of gold medals or world championships or tournament wins. So you can't poo-poo it as irrelevant. It definitely gets you noticed versus the guy you beat.
Yeah.
But in the same breath, you're right. Then when you get among that elite status, then maybe your reputation as a competitor has more bearing because now you're in a much more competitive field of the top people. So there's a lot of, outstanding people to choose from. And that's where you being the 50-50 advantage winner is not necessarily the impressive part of that being in that bunch.
Yeah. I think we're getting a little bit off of the topic I had originally, but part of this, I think, is the guy looks at the other competitor and thinks there's no other way I could beat this person than to do this particular game or to win within this set of rules, and that's what they're going to do to get the victory.
Well, yeah, but you made that sound kind of nefarious, and so let me soften that by saying sometimes competitors are so close.
Yeah.
So evenly matched that honestly there isn't a lot of differentiating to them, and the smallest mistake could be the differentiator. So in their defense, I would say sometimes guys are very evenly matched, and even though they really want the same thing, which is a big finish, it's just not going to happen at that level.
Yeah.
So, or it could happen even at lower. It could happen at white belt. It just means two people are very evenly matched. So it's not always It's not always somebody being devious about their strategy. Sometimes it's just really that close.
Yeah, that's a good point. If somebody's going to be a referee for the first time, what advice do you have for them as far as making that step and making sure that they have happy or satisfied customers, like you were saying?
Got to satisfy the customer. Well, a couple of things. I think the first advice I would say is, it's helpful if you've competed yourself. I think to know the anxiety, the torment, the excitement, the adrenaline rush of being a competitor is helpful and gives the referee adequate sympathy for his customers. But I don't think that's a requirement. So I think that might be helpful. So if you've got competitive experience, it means you've been at least in a tournament environment. So if you're not, if you haven't been a competitor, you at least have to be a spectator, spend some time at tournaments and determine, hey, this is something I might like. I could stand around here all day and watch jiu-jitsu. So it's kind of a good barometer also if you're the kind of person. If you find yourself going to tournaments to watch and after an hour you're like, oh, this sucks, I got to go. Well, I got news for you. 10 hours of it. You're not going to feel better about 10 hours of it. The pay is not that good. So you really got to like watching jiu-jitsu. Thirdly, if you want to get a little bit of experience without actually getting in the ring, I'd recommend working the table. So if you work the table, you could literally be the scorer, timekeeper, or in some cases you could be the runner, which is the person that collects fighters from the pen to the actual ring. If you can get into the tournament environment and you're able to experience it as a whole and watch referees, I think it's really helpful. That's why I say the table specifically, to work with a ref, watch what he's doing, will give you some experience, and you can start testing yourself. Like, you should be able to at least digest or understand what the referee is doing and why. And it's also a great opportunity to learn, like, hey, ref, that last match, that 2 points, what was that for? I mean, here's a great opportunity for a built-in mentor just by working a table. The next level is, of course, to do some certification classes or courses. There's not a lot to choose from. The best resource is two places. I mean, before any federation tournament, they always run a rules meeting. So, if you don't mind paying the money and having the rule book read to you, it offers some. It offers insight into the rules, not so much into refereeing, because again, it's a rules seminar. It's not teaching you how to referee, but it will give you at least a foundation and the environment where you're around peers or potential peers, and give you an idea of what that atmosphere is like and what knowledge you'll need to have. And then I always mention U.S. Grappling also. They run a more robust program, even though they're a smaller tournament and not as well known throughout the country because they are kind of regional in the, I guess I'll say the mid-Atlantic states. They actually run a referee program that I used to drive down to Virginia, and I live in New York. I used to go down there. I've been down there a couple of times for it. And they actually do a full day of not only explanation as a class, but also running mock matches where you're literally putting on the wristbands, competitors volunteering come out and go through the motions, and you practice literally scoring and get debriefed, and people give you advice and correction, and so that's more of a hands-on. But other than that, you're kind of on your own. There are some tournaments that will offer mentoring programs, which is, well, I haven't ref before, but how about you shadow this guy for the day? So I'll let you stand with this experienced ref, and you can watch what he's doing, ask him questions throughout the day, and get kind of a feel for how it should go. And then, hey, why don't you try a couple of matches, and I'll oversee them. So this shadowing concept or mentoring concept, literally at an event, I don't think it's done enough. But there are some places that are willing to do it. I know with my organization, I've mentored some guys that now are, highly qualified peers of mine that at one point they were like, hey, I want to get into reffing. Can you help me? So when I was starting early on, I sought out referees and I picked their brain and I asked them lots of questions and I followed them to tournaments and I just, soaked it up like a sponge. So I think it's a mistake to just get hired and try to wing it. I think you can kind of incrementally move yourself into it because I think even if you could be good, even if you might like it, if you thrust yourself into the situation, and I know I did, unfortunately, I kind of threw myself in there kind of hard, kind of early. As a purple belt with barely any experience, I was refereeing black belt matches, and it was very scary. And it could be the kind of thing that shakes people and convinces them not to do it. So also, I think you might do yourself a favor by breaking yourself in easy rather than just, somebody offers you to ref and you do it. Unless it's small scale, something like, in-house tournaments or, just something like really, really low level, small, 40 competitors. I just went to an in-house tournament. They had 2 rings. They're running in a gym. It was very low pressure. To be honest, the guys were not particularly skilled. They made a ton of mistakes, but honestly, in that format, you can get away with that. So also look for opportunities. There may be low level where you're not, in the spotlight for a high level black belt money match just yet out of the box.
All right.
So that's my best advice.
Yeah, that's great advice. And if you're looking to do that, or if you want to just try that and see what it's like on that side, great advice to do that successfully. David, thank you so much for hopping on here with me.
Hey, thank you for having me. Always a pleasure to talk with you.
Man, I wanted to thank David for jumping on here with us. If you found that conversation fascinating like I did, go check out his website. Go like him on Facebook. He puts these really cool videos that just spark conversations. How many points would you score for this? Or, would you give an advantage for this? And he'll let the video go. It's usually like 30 seconds, a minute long. And then comment below, and you'll see me commenting sometimes like, oh, I got to get on this, and this is interesting. And I really enjoy what he's doing. Also, go check out the other interview we did with him a while back, and similar discussion, different topics, about refereeing, obviously, but different elements within the game. So, glad to have him back, and glad he's doing what he's doing. I think it's great for the sport.
So if you like that interview, and if you like the podcast, tell a friend. Check us out on social media. We're on Facebook. Byron's active on YouTube. And we have an app. Download the app. It's the easiest way to get an episode every week. And stop by and let us know you checked us out.
Hey, Joe,
Gary, you go ahead.
Joe, you know where else Byron's active at?
Gosh, I was going to say that, Gary. You go first, and I'll throw mine and see who gets better.
Yeah. Byron is active at writing articles about jiu-jitsu.
I was gonna say Gary's active on farmersonly.com.
Yeah, see, Byron's starting to put me down, and I'm trying to let everybody know how great of a scholarly person Byron is.
Well, as Gary would say, yeehaw.
Yeah. Byron, this week you published your own article that you can find on the BJJ Brick website, bjjbrick.com, BJJ Brick Facebook page. It is called Properly Responding to Feedback to Get Better at BJJ. Tell us a little bit about your article there, Mr. Byron Jabara.
Well, first off, as you say the title, that sounds really lame. I always spend a little bit of time trying to think of a good, catchy title, and that one failed. But yeah, go ahead, Gary.
That title is not lame. You are lame, not the title.
I've produced a lame title through my lameness of myself. But this is an important concept that not everybody gets. There's two big things I think that need to be said about feedback. When you first get feedback, I urge you to try it, because it's going to seem kind of counterintuitive. If it seemed like it was a good idea to you from the first place, you would have already been doing this. If you could have figured it out on your own, you'd be doing it. But the feedback will sound a little bit weird to you, or might sound, well, I don't know why that would be good. Try it. It may or may not be great feedback, but you've got to at least experiment with that and see how it matches up with you guys. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Absolutely.
So that's one of the first big ones, and do understand where the feedback's coming from. Is it somebody who is coming from a source of knowledge on the topic, and they have some relevant information to give you, or is it a new person telling you that your headlock is need to be tighter, or lift your chin up? That sort of advice that I hear Gary saying that all the time. Lift your chin up higher.
Yeah, I try to do it, but most times people don't listen to my feedback.
But they listen, they'll only listen once.
But I think that's a big one, is because a lot of the example I give in the article is you grab someone's collar in jiu-jitsu and you try to control their posture. That's a good idea. Collar control is great. And then you move to no-gi and you grab the back of their neck and you control their posture. About the same thing, really. Not quite an iron grip, but you get the same effect as you're able to pull down on them. You might try, depending on what you're trying to do with your guard, pulling down on like the lower part of their head, kind of the base of their head where it connects to the neck, or even on their actual head. Instead of grabbing their neck, move your hand up a few inches and pull down. You might break their posture a little bit easier. And because you're coming from a jiu-jitsu world, and it's so much easier just to move your hand from the collar to the back of the head, or back of the neck, it feels weird grabbing the back of the head. It's a bit bigger of an object to wrap your hand around. It won't actually fit around their whole head. So I could easily say that, that sounds weird. I don't think I'm going to do that. But if I could try it first, apply it, I could see, well, maybe it does make it a lot easier to break their posture, especially if I put a little twist into that, into their neck as I pull it down. Man, their posture just broke really easy. But it sounds like you would have less control because you're used to the gi where you grab it and they have to really work hard to break that grip, where in no gi, that's really not that solid of a grip anyway, and grabbing the back of the head and pulling down, or twisting and pulling down, it just seems weird because it's even less of a grip. But it is a good way to break the posture. And it may or may not work for you, as you listen to this. Hey, give it a try, maybe it'll work. But just consider it first and not just say, oh, no, I like to grab here. That's good. If somebody takes time to give you advice, try it first and then consider if it's good advice.
Byron, that's good advice.
Yeah, Byron, what I hear you saying is you really need to be open-minded. I think some of it is you can't predetermine, especially early on in your jiu-jitsu journey, that like this is my game and so this wouldn't fit into it, or this is something I'm not flexible enough to do. I think I made that mistake early on, especially with the flexibility and the mobility. Moves would be brought to class and I'd sort of decide already that that's probably not something that's ever going to fit my game. And the less I've approached jiu-jitsu that way, and the more I've accepted all technique, even if I do train a technique that doesn't fit into my game, just the process of training it and looking at it and trying to figure out a way to make it work for me is going to benefit me in other areas as well.
Joe, it's so crazy you said that, because I've ran in that same spot before. And it dealt with like flexibility issues or inversion issues, and saying, hey, this isn't going to fit into my game. And I did get so much better once I became open-minded, as you and Byron were talking about, and found out that a lot of those things really did help me. And even if I didn't think it was going to fit into my game, just learning it and going through the motions just made my mobility better. It made me more aware of things, and just not being closed-minded, being open-minded definitely is going to help your game.
So if we figured that out, anybody can, because it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks, and
we're pretty
both
thick
of
at
us
it.
kind of picked that up.
Yep. But you know what I really like what you said, Byron, is your last highlighted point. Thank that person who took the time to give the feedback. And, I just think that's great. You're going to get more feedback if you're, telling somebody thank you. You're showing them how much it means to you. And it seems like if you're that type of person, you're so receptive to it, people are going to give you more feedback, which in turn is going to make your game better.
Yeah, and the thank you can come in more than one way, obviously. It's a quick, hey, thanks for showing me that, I appreciate it, after they show you something. Also, another big way is next week, when you've been doing this for a little while and it's worked, or tell the person, hey, you showed me that sweep, and I've done it a few times, and it's great. Man, that really motivates me to show you more things. It's that simple. If I show you, like, if you see me talking with somebody after class and going over some techniques, that person, I know they're going to try these things. Like, I'm usually kind of in, lately anyway, been a little bit hard to get home. But if somebody, hey, show me this, I've been doing this, what's happened with this? I'm going to stop them to help them. But I know they appreciate it, and I know that they're going to try it. And just being thankful when they show you the move, and then if you're able to make it work, tell them, hey, thanks again for showing me how to do that leg drag. I've been pulling it off a lot. That's like another great way to not just show that you appreciate it, but you're actually listening and using the skills that they've shared with you. And you do want to develop that relationship with your coaches to where they are eager to show you something because they know you're going to use it.
Thanks for the awesome article. I know everybody can get something from that. Check that article out. We have a link to it in the show notes, and it's also on our Facebook page.
Yep, and it's on our YouTube channel. I did the article in a video version.
And like you said, he did the video version. And if anybody wants to make the viewing experience that much more pleasurable when you're watching it, just put tape over your eyes. That'll make it a little bit better.
Gary, that's hit play, turn the screen off, or close the window that it's on, and you could just listen that way. You don't need to actually.
I never thought of that.
Yeah. That's why you have no eyelids left, because you basically have worn them off with tape every time there's something like me pop up on Facebook.
Yeah, I guess I learned something today. I'm open-minded.
Yeah, there you go.
Yep. Yeah, thanks for the advice, Byron.
You're welcome, Gary.
See, we just role played Byron's article.
Good times.
Gary's always trying to role play.
Earlier we talked about needing a vacation, and or creating a life that puts you in a position where you're not craving one all the time. But if somebody hasn't got there, where is a good place to go on vacation in America, Gary?
I would say Wichita, Kansas, June 22, 23rd, and 24th. It's a BJJ event, the Palooza. It's going to be a great time. It's our first ever BJJ event. It's at Fox Fitness. It's a gracious host, Jake Fox, has helped us out big time here. And June 22nd, open mat. June 23rd, Tim Sled. He's having a kids seminar, which is outside of the BjjBrick event, and he's also having a regular seminar. And then we're also having Rolly Delgado. Two of our previous guests are going to be giving the seminar. I think we've got a comedy club lined up for Saturday night, and then Sunday night, or the 24th, we are going to have some more trainings. So definitely check it out. Wichita, Kansas, Fox Fitness, BjjBrick, Tim Sled, Rolly Delgado, Joe Thomas, Byron Jabara, and myself, and 60 other people. It's going to be awesome.
Yep. It is very likely to sell out. We are also giving away DVDs on Sunday. A couple of them, a Luke Choke Seminar, Escapes from Anywhere, a DVD on the Daily Hiva Card, Wrist Locks for the Win, the Von Fluchoke, a lot of DVDs, over $550 worth of DVDs are giving away Sunday.
Gary, did you mention the kids seminar?
I did mention the kids seminar.
Okay, and there'll be some women that want to make sure other women know that they'll be there, correct? So there's something for everybody. Come and have a good time.
I did forget to mention that Mindy from Kansas City is going to come down and see us, and she definitely wants everybody to know that there are going to be women there. So if you're afraid that you might be the only woman, it's not going to happen. So make sure you're there and say hi to Mindy. And thank you, Mindy, for coming down from KC.
Yep, Mindy, for sure. No matter what, I'm dragging my wife to this event. She's going to be getting on the mats as well. And we'll have a great time. Mindy is also a Patreon supporter. What happened? Mindy listened to the podcast, said, wow, I really enjoy the BjjBrick podcast, or maybe something like that. I am imagining. I want to help these guys continue to do what they do and even take it to the next level. So how can I do that? I go to Patreon. There's a link in the show notes of probably where she found the link. And she said, I want to give those guys $1 per episode. And at the end of every month, if there's 5 episodes, $5 is charged to a card, and that goes towards this project here. And when she signed up, I mailed her out a BjjBrick gi patch. We'll mail that gi patch and the sticker anywhere in the world that has an address. And then promptly invited her to the BjjBrick private Facebook group, where she also can participate in, getting a question in upcoming interviews. So that's kind of fun as well. So I think she's that's kind of a fun example to use a person. But extra shout out to Mindy and Rob and Craig. Rob and Craig are 2 of our longer time Patreon supporters. Really appreciate them for being some of the first guys to hop on and support the podcast. So thank you.
We've been talking about the $550 of DVDs you're giving away. But the cool thing is, as Joe and I were just talking about this a little earlier today, that, Byron's audiobooks. And this week, he's got an audiobook he's working on. Hopefully it does come out for publication sometime. But, it's an awesome audiobook. And, we talked about vacations a little bit earlier, and Byron's audiobook is My Chronicles on My Trip to Wally World. And Byron talks about, going from Chicago, all the way to California to go visit Wally World. And it's very unique. And, if you could just tell us about a little bit about it, just to whet everybody's appetite, Byron.
Well, just to whet people's appetite, it was a wild journey. A lot of rain, actually. We had one of our members of the family strapped to the hood of the car in a massive rainstorm. So that was a bit exciting.
What about before that? I know you said you ran into some trials and tribulations, and you said, you were kind of happy that you knew jiu-jitsu because, going through one of the cities, one of the early cities you went through kind of scared you, with kind of when you got lost a little bit. Tell us of what city it was and kind of about what happened.
Gary, you're testing my knowledge of the movie Vacation. I think it was St. Louis, maybe East St. Louis?
Yeah, definitely.
This audiobook is based loosely, actually the movie is based loosely on my series of events that happened when I was probably 4 years old as a young family man driving his family across the country.
Didn't they used to call you Rusty?
Okay. On the roll of Rusty, that's right. My dad drove us across the country to Wally World. And you know what happened when we got to Wally World?
What happened?
It was closed. Sorry, folks, park's closed.
You drove all that way?
My dad did. He basically destroyed his car.
You might as well go in whether it's closed or not if you drove all that way.
There's a trick to that. What's the trick? You need a BB gun, and you can bully your way into the park.
That sounds awesome.
Well,
thinking outside the box.
He lost it, and it ends up the SWAT team rolled in there, and thank goodness the owner of Wally World, whose name I'm drawing a blank on, let us off the hook.
Well, it sounds like you had a great time. I mean, except for the end there, and except for one of your relatives riding on top of the truckster.
Well, she had passed away, so.
Oh, okay.
You know what you should do next, Byron?
Yeah, what's up?
You should have everybody over for a big family Christmas.
Nice.
Man, you could invite everybody. I know you've definitely been wanting to see your cousin Eddie from Dodge City.
Yeah, we actually stopped by his house on the way out to Wally World.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is that where you got? That's right, because you said that's where you got your white wrestling shoes.
And more reading material than I know how to handle.
Yeah.
But yeah, so maybe we'll have all my family over for Christmas, and I know that my dad, played by Chevy Chase, is real big into decorating the house.
What about your dog Dinks?
He's a Mississippi Lakehound. Guys, if none of this had made sense, I don't know what to say other than we're referring to two movies, Vacation and Christmas Vacation. They're kind of classics here, especially if you're out of the country. Probably none of that made sense. Check them out. They're fun movies. And what are they from I think Vacation's from the 80s? Is Christmas Vacation 90s or is it 80s as well?
Probably still 80s, but definitely check it out. Vacation, Christmas Vacation, and actually there's a newer version of it, of Vacation too. Great movies.
Yeah. Kind of cult classics.
And, we actually do steal stuff from there. I think Joe was talking about the Jelly of the Month Club not too long ago.
Yeah.
The gift that keeps giving the whole year round.
Yep.
Yeah, I heard that, but I didn't put the two together. Yeah. Well done, guys.
Well done. But, hey, definitely do not miss next week. Byron, who do we have on next week?
We're happy to bring Christina Barlon back to the BjjBrick Podcast. And we have some really good jiu-jitsu discussion. And she also talks about battling with depression and dealing with suicidal thoughts. And, I think it's 200 some episodes into this thing. We've talked about mental health issues, but Christina was so generous with willing to share parts of her life that I think people typically aren't, or it's hard to. This is a conversation that we've never had really on the show, and I think it's very important to hear. It's hard sometimes to understand what's happening with other people, and to hear from her point of view and her thoughts. I think this one is world-class black belt, and she offers some great advice and some fun stories about jiu-jitsu. And then we talk about a very serious issue that could affect any of us. And it might be you that's battling some mental health issues, or it might be somebody that you know, a friend or a family member. And I think this conversation is valuable to listen to. And that's next week. Stay sweaty, my friends.
And don't forget to shower.
Train hard, train smart, get better. We'll see you on the mats, guys.
Go on vacation. Take a road trip to go to the BjjBrick event.
It is definitely better than going to Wally World, because Wally World will not be open.
Yeah, and I guarantee you Fox Fitness will be open June 22, 23, and 24, so come see us.
Thank you for listening. I hope you find the time today to roll. After all, the best way to get better at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.